Hello, and welcome to the Institute Without Boundaries year-end event. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, First Nation, and other Indigenous peoples who've lived on this land. My name is Cherish. I'm one of only 6 interdisciplinary design strategy students of the IWB's class of 2020-2021. A small but mighty team that took on tackling the wicked problem of living and aging in place. Just so you know, we call ourselves the Hello Aging Team because we welcome aging and all the opportunities it brings. We're human-centered, innovative, and we hope to inspire. I'll be your MC for this afternoon. I want to thank you for joining us. I know we have people tuned in all the way from Hong Kong, India, Iran, and Ireland. I invite everyone now to take a second to write in the chat where you're tuning in from. And we know that wherever you are in the world right now, we've all been through a challenging year with the pandemic. Despite the time and distance between us, we're aiming to find ways for human connection throughout this event. So please, feel free to show some love and appreciation at any time. If you hear or see something that resonates with you, go ahead and add some smiles or thumbs up emojis in the chat, along with any comments. And if you have any questions that you want us to address, add them to the Q&A tab. We'll respond at the end of the event. Both the chat and Q&A can be found on the right hand of your screen, along with a copy of the agenda in the handout section, which I'll take you through right now. Our Dean Luigi Ferreira will open our event with a few words on the importance of our theme this year. We'll walk you through the journey of our school year and the research and insights that led us to the ultimate vision of our final service design concept. Following, we'll do a short round of Q&A, and lastly, we'll conclude our event with acknowledgements to a few key people and closing words by the chair of the School of Design, Dr. Rita Maurice. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce Luigi Ferreira, Dean of the Center for Arts, Design and Information Technology, and Director for the Institute Without Boundaries.
In 2020, 6 postgraduate students embarked on the Interdisciplinary Design Program at the Institute Without Boundaries to tackle the complex problem of living and aging in place. Adding to that complexity was learning and working in an entirely new virtual world. The IWB cohort is the first to experience a full year of online learning, and in fact, they have not met in person as a collective. In spite of this, they pressed on in the spirit on which the IWB was founded. Over the past year, in partnership with leading designers and industry professionals, they collaborated as a team to research, design, and conceptualize a real-world project that creates solutions addressing social inclusion. The current context of the global pandemic has given these students added insights into the experience, feelings, and consequences of social isolation, inspiring a truly empathetic approach to their designs. Which brings us to why we're all here now, to unveil solutions that were designed arguably for the most vulnerable and at-risk population we have in Canada today, older adults. Unfortunately, they are a growing community of marginalized voices that are not always heard. I think the presentations we're about to hear are incredibly timely and relevant for many of us. Before I turn it back to the students, I want to thank our many partners, experts, and faculty who have provided their advice and guidance throughout the year, as well as the numerous students from George Brown colleges and schools from countries across the world that worked diligently with them to turn their insights into concepts. Lastly, I want to congratulate these students for dedicating themselves so wholeheartedly this year that within the first month of the program, they dubbed themselves the Hello Aging Team. This simple gesture reflects a unity between individuals with many different perspectives and expertise, working collaboratively to achieve a common purpose, and I applaud that. Congratulations on your work this year. Looking forward to hearing it.
Thank you so much, Dean Ferreira. It really has been quite a year to remember. And we'd like to take a moment to reflect on the new skills we've gained and to give you a glimpse into our learnings, projects, and thinking behind what's driving the service vision of our final concept. Miriam, if you'd be so kind as to join me for one last collaboration as we take our audience through a few key highlights from our school year.
I'd love to cherish. Hello everyone. Our year began with secondary research, where we performed an analysis of 60 international case studies about living and aging in place. We then built a lexicon website of 100 key terms relevant to the discourse of aging in place.
Next, we executed a data visualization project on the risks and impacts of falls for older adults. That image, by the way, depicts that 50% of all falls causing hospitalization happen at home. Just something to consider while you're watching our presentation. Then we created product, system, and service solutions for living and aging in place in the areas of healthcare, living services, and social services.
And we mapped the ecosystem of the living and aging experience for older adults in Canada. On to our first chart, where we developed innovative designs focused on two themes, private and public spaces. This was especially significant as it was our first time seeking critical feedback from external advisors who offered heaps of valuable insights into our work. A special shout out goes to Barbara, our lived experience advisor, who's been a friendly face along our journey ever since.
Next, we compiled a research report of all our synthesized findings to date. And of course, our biggest opportunity was delving into primary research, where we engaged in 24 virtual interviews of stakeholders, older adults, and caregivers.
We also designed an environment that transformed the indoors of underutilized buildings into experiential spaces that will enhance older adults' well-being. Then on to our friendly debates, where we paint against each other to defend key themes related to living and aging in place, preparation, policy versus social norms, and universal design.
On to semester 2, where we began to focus on designing systems and services that meet the needs and desires of older adults. We each facilitated our own teams during an international charrette, where we had the indelible experience of working with students from across the globe, from different time zones, with different expertise, and sometimes in different languages. A big shout out to all our new friends from France, Ireland, and Italy. The outcomes were 9 distinct projects with themes of health and well-being, age inclusivity, and housing and support. From there, the Hello Aging team developed our final service design concept. Based on our past year findings, along with fresh ideas from our charrette, we honed in on strengthening communities for older adults in order to combat social isolation. We're passionate about this idea and excited to unveil our design vision today for the very first time to industry professionals and the general public. We truly believe it's a community initiative that will change lives for the better.
Simultaneously, we designed our research publication, which I'm pleased to say that you can sign up to receive. More details on that to follow. And we produced a social media campaign and year-end event to launch it off. We did so with the help of some local Georgian students from the graphic design, interaction design, and development programs during our final production shot. Our thanks again to Agisa, Cassandra, Ellie, Mary, Nicole, Sophia, and Yasama.
Wow, what a journey it's been. Thanks for your help, Miriam. I'm sure this has made our audience even more eager to learn about our service vision. Are you ready to age in place? Here's Kim and Saya to take you through our year's worth of research, insights, design solutions, and strategies that culminated in our research publication. Don't forget, add any comments you have to the chat, add any questions you have to the Q&A, and we'll respond at the end of the event. Over to you.
Thank you, Miriam and Cherish. My name is Saya.
My name is Kim.
And we'll now take you through an overview of the research we've done over the year and highlight our key findings and insights that drove our design concept.
Over the past 9 months, we've conducted primary and secondary research to develop insights that drove design concepts through collaboration and design strengths.
All to answer the design challenge of how might we reimagine the future of living and aging in place. In doing so, our goal was twofold. to redefine what it means to age in place and reframe our understanding of those involved.
We redefined the traditional understanding of aging in place to encompass all shapes and forms, as long as they can attain a sense of safety, security, and belonging, including private dwellings, co-housing, and institutional care.
And in moving away from harmful assumptions and sweeping generalizations, we're reframing our understanding of older adults in terms of the language we use and the way we categorize the demographic group. In our research, we quickly found that the language was very important. We made a conscious decision to use the term older adults as opposed to terms like elderly or seniors, because, for example, the word elderly has long been associated with images of illness and physical decline, whereas the word elder has distinct cultural uses in many Indigenous groups. And on the other hand, senior is a popularly hated word, and saying old people sounds like the group is static, fixed, and one-dimensional. So we landed on the term older adults as vague, flexible, and neutral term.
In terms of categorization, we're also consciously refraining from attaching a number to the term, though they are typically defined as over the age of 65. We don't see aging as just a number. We don't see the value of categorizing our users simply by their chronological age, when in fact there are many different types of aging, such as biological age based on our health and genetics, and our felt age based on our mindset and maturity levels.
Instead, we're designing solutions by addressing the categories of needs and challenges. For instance, rather than designing for solutions for older adults aged 70 to 80, we can design solutions for older adults with limited mobilities, those who are experiencing loneliness and social isolation, or with progressing dementia, for example. This kind of direct categorization of the user groups helps us ensure that the design focuses to meet their needs.
Another important user group that we need to consider are formal and informal caregivers, including professional healthcare workers like family doctors, physicians, therapists, and personal support workers, as well as friends, family, neighbors, and others around the community. Of course, the group caregiver is even more diverse and ambiguous than older adults with a range needs and pain points to design for, but they are also often subject matters experts with the most intimate knowledge of older adults' needs and pain points which we can all learn from.
So in synthesizing our research and our understanding of the individuals, groups, and systems involved, we came to our understanding of the system and its parts as an integrated whole, with 6 key insights that we're calling policy, perception, identity, access, planning, and community. In researching how a person navigates their social context that determines their well-being, we were looking through the lens of aging in place to consider older adults and caregivers specifically. And this map ultimately helps us as designers to understand what it means to be aging, through how it's perceived and the identities of those who are aging, how to better facilitate the process of preparation by ensuring the users have access to essential products and services to be able to plan ahead, and provide support through empowering local communities and advocating for better policies to garner public support.
Fully fleshed out in the publication as a comprehensive report of our research, including user interview codes and stories, essays to help contextualize each insights, and case studies that we look inspiration from, as well as our design challenge and concepts to demonstrate how we've applied our own insights.
And now we'll take you through a brief overview of our insights to help unpack the system, starting with the largest scale, in which we call policy, to which we mean there should be systems in place to support the individual aging in place, including older adults, caregivers, and their communities.
Jim is one of the older adults we've interviewed. He has a long-term disability with his spouse and has his primary caregiver. And when asked about his aging in place experience, he noted that didn't feel supported, that there were no real supports to help them as an average middle-class old couple to age in place.
But aging in place shouldn't just be a private concern, because when the aging population makes up 1 in 4 Canadians, it's expected to drive up the cost of publicly funded healthcare systems, where the average cost of healthcare jumps to $12,000 for older adults compared to $2,700 for the rest of the demographic group. It's expected to add about $93 billion to healthcare costs over the next 10 years, So it really is in the interest of the public to support the older adult population to age in place and requires the integration of larger social, political, and economic systems with appropriate policies and adequate funding.
And of course, COVID-19 definitely brought the light of a tragic and shocking reality of our current care systems, where the majority of the impact was seen throughout long-term care facilities for older adults. And we asked Lulu, a former healthcare worker and researcher, what she believed needed to change to better support caregivers. She pointed out the lack of paid sick leaves for PSWs. It puts the caregivers at risk of infection and exhaustion, and also puts older adults at risk.
And in addition to the lack of paid sick leave are also poor working conditions for many healthcare workers. Generally, most long-term care facilities are understaffed, and without legislated minimum staff to resident ratio requirements, the responsibility of a staff can range from 10 to 30 residents per PSW per shift, making it difficult for them to provide meaningful care with unfair expectations and unimaginable stress and exhaustion. And the conditions are even less favorable for those providing home and community care. Considering that PSWs make a higher wage working in long-term care facilities than they do in private homes, in combination with the concern for all the travel, putting PSWs and older adults at greater risk for infection, there has been almost 40% drop in the rate of which PSWs are accepting home care assignments, leaving older adults without the care that they need and have always relied on.
Where again, Jim expresses how the pandemic has brought on new challenges, unable to access other services that they have previously relied on, including a home maintenance service and care support that they've worked with for years, were now unable to work.
And while policies can either enable or hinder the aging in place experience, so too can people's perceptions of what it means to age. Which brings us to our next insight, perception.
When we say perception, we mean that aging means different things to different people based on our personal beliefs, values, and social culture norms. For some societies, cultures, and individuals celebrate aging and have tradition that respects older adults.
But generally in the Western culture, with the ever-growing anti-aging industry and stereotypes enforced in popular media, there's a lot of stigma and prejudice based on age, also known as ageism, that can be reflected in people's attitudes and behaviors in the workplace, healthcare, and everyday interactions. And while sometimes it's out of malicious intent, often it's out of benign ignorance. But unlike other isms, ageism is often overlooked, not challenged, or talked about enough, as most of us are unaware that it's a problem or even aware when we are being ageist. For example, Kathleen is one of the older adults we've interviewed, and she recounted her experience of feeling put down and dismissed by her son. It was when she measured out the space in the kitchen for a new fridge under a shelf and forgot to account for the shelf brackets. A simple mistake that anybody could have made. But to hear her son dismiss her capabilities, she then very much internalized the comment, and it led her to think that she's getting old and no longer can do things or remember things the same anymore, which isn't fair to Kathleen to have her small mistake now be associated with her capabilities.
This is definitely not a one-off occurrence, as 82% of older adults regularly experience at least one form of ageism in their daily lives, including harmful assumptions, offensive jokes, and the dismissal of their agency simply because of their age.
With real negative consequences to one's well-being, those with negative self-perceptions of aging are to be at increased risk of mental health concerns such as depression and loneliness, and it can actually worsen somebody's memory by leading them to believe it is, where the same applies for someone's physical balance, and is also associated with shortened lifespan than those with positive self-perceptions of aging.
In order to avoid making assumptions about older adults, we have to understand the group as individuals. So we take you to our next insight, identity, to which we want to say that there is no one-size-fits-all solution for aging, where even NIDA, a formal caregiver with years of training and experience, noted that it can take up to 6 months to realize customized care for her clients and try to a lot of different things to figure out what they prefer and understand why they're refusing certain activities of type of care.
And in trying to move away from making harmful assumptions that older adults are just being stubborn, as designers, we have to be aware of the intersectional identities, including differences in culture, language, finance, health, sociopolitical identity, and physical and cognitive abilities, in order to meet not just their needs, but also their preferences.
However, we still want to be able to recognize that there are some general needs of older adults as a demographic group. For instance, 1 in 10 older adults in their 50s have serious impairments in mobility, and the number jumps to 1 in 2 for older adults in their 80s.
For which we can consider universal or inclusive design as a standard to maximize accessibility, which can mean, for instance, widening traditional doorways to be wheelchair accessible, adding gentle slopes or stairs, or no stairs at all wherever possible. Meanwhile, of course, there are other variants of individual abilities, such as differences in financial security or geographical location that could impact one's access to essential resources. Which brings us to our next insight, access, where we found access to information and resources, such as finance, housing, transportation, technology and information, healthcare, food and nutrition, and public spaces can empower individuals to enhance their aging in place experience.
For example, Fernando, who has been living with his grandmother with progressing dementia since she fell, set out to look for a 3-bedroom house that didn't require his grandmother to climb any stairs. Though, lucky for him, finances and affordability wasn't an issue. It was still difficult to even find a 3-bedroom bungalow in the city.
Such conditions that are beyond one's genetics and lifestyle that can influence the quality of life is also known as social determinants of health, which are social conditions that people grow, work, and live in that can influence the lifestyle and the quality of healthcare that's received. In Canada, there are certain individuals and groups such as Indigenous population, sexual and racial minorities, new immigrants, and people with disabilities that face greater discrimination at both the personal and systemic levels. And that in turn attributes to a lack of access to education and employment opportunities that can lead to lower income and harsher working conditions, and as well as food and housing insecurity. And further leading to lower life expectancy, lower self-rated mental health, higher suicide rates, chronic diseases, and unhealthy behaviors such as smoking and alcohol consumption.
In Canada, there is also barriers to accessing essential goods and services in remote and rural areas. Or for instance, things like fresh fruits and vegetables and high-speed internet are unavailable and unaffordable, negatively impacting their well-being and ability to live, work, and play. And as a result, access to goods and services can shape how someone can plan and prepare to age in place, which brings us to our next insight, planning. In that dignified aging in place involves planning ahead.
And ultimately, without a plan, it can make it difficult for loved ones to provide care. As Joe, who's taking care of his aging mother, expresses that at times it feels like there's fires that have to be put out rather than a calm, calculated plan. And instead of a son ready to support his mother long term, he feels more like an emergency room doctor.
Recognizing that there may be unforeseen challenges and advanced life events, planning ahead can help ease the transition of aging in place, which includes having difficult yet necessary conversations, delegating roles and responsibilities, setting boundaries and expectations, and establishing a care network.
Perhaps it's the stigma or the difficult nature of facing our own mortality, but studies are finding that more than 90% of informal caregivers and families are failing to discuss the range of important topics, from financial issues to medical care to long-term living arrangements.
This is problematic when studies are also finding that 1 in 4 Canadians are providing informal, unpaid care. 44% of caregivers care for both parent and children, often managing a full-time jobs. 1 in 10 caregivers spend more than 30 hours per week providing care. 1.6 million caregivers took time off work to provide care.
And without a financial plan and a care network established for both the older adult and the caregiver, loved ones who often step into caregiving role unexpectedly are likely to experience burnout or physical, mental, emotional, and financial exhaustion, which can be consequential for the caregiver's well-being, as well as the quality of care that they are able to provide the older adult. And it is important to have these conversations as early as possible. But as necessary as they are, it's also important to recognize that there are difficult conversations to be had, which must be approached with patience and kindness. And where planning includes the establishment of a care network and having people around, that also includes the community.
This is our last insight, community. In that we say, older adults and their loved ones need to establish a care network to rely on to help maintain well-being while aging in place, including friends, neighbors, caregivers, and connected to broader community that fosters a sense of belonging and facilitates meaningful interactions.
This is important and a growing concern, as Sally, one of our interviewees, recounts a story of her friend's mother-in-law, who is aging in a single-person household far from the rest of her family, was suspected of having dementia. So when Sally's friend came to visit, they made sure to spend time with her, to cook with her and chat together, and keep her company. And what was amazing was that within a matter of days, the mother-in-law who was thought to have dementia was back to her normal, sharp, bright, and engaged self.
Without others around, older adults, especially those experiencing advanced life events such as loss of family and friends, including spousal loss, changing in physical and cognitive abilities, or loss of a driver's license. Such as older adults may find themselves living in one-person household with a reduced social circle and without reliable transportation that make it difficult to socially engage in the community with others.
And as some of us may have experienced during COVID-19 lockdowns, social isolation and loneliness very much impacts our well-being, and it poses serious mental and physical health risks, such as anxiety and depression, but also more serious consequences, increasing the risk of dementia, strokes, and heart diseases.
To combat the risk of social isolation for older adults, one way is to strengthen the community in making sure spaces and programs are inclusive and accessible, and is able to foster a sense of belonging to a greater group through meaningful engagement.
Now, as we continue to roll out vaccinations and begin preparing to integrate ourselves back into public spaces, it's prime opportunity for action to reimagine our existing spaces and communities as we recover, to reach out to older adults who are socially isolated and engage them in their communities. And for our system, although valuable on their own, as we developed and designed concepts focused and driven by each insight, they are by no means siloed. Ultimately, as a holistic and integrated system, the impact in one area has consequences for others that must be considered and accounted for. As such, in considering the system of aging in place in its entirety, we've developed a final design concept driven to innovate, considering all 6 insights while staying cognizant of the resiliency required in designing amidst a global pandemic. To guide you through the concept presentation, I will now pass it on to Christelle and LJ, who will introduce the design concept that we've ideated, developed, and iterated on over the past year. Ultimately, in that we are answering the question we asked ourselves: how might we create a resilient system that challenges our perception of aging, and one that provides community support and prepares older adults to age in place?
Hi, my name is Christelle.
And I'm LJ.
We'd like to welcome you to KIND, our answer to the 6 insights we've uncovered in our research, a system that houses 3 main programs: KIND Community, KIND Collaboration, and KIND Connection, to empower older adults to share resources, skills, and wisdom. KIND's vision is to cultivate a sense of belonging for older adults living and aging in place in Canada.
So, what is KIND? KIND is a service with a social cooperative model that offers inclusive, scalable, and adaptive programs for older adults. KIND's programming enables older adults access to a network of local supports, to gain entrepreneurial opportunities, and to create an intergenerational knowledge archive for communities. And how does KIND facilitate social integration? The KIND programs vary by scale and reach. KIND Community focuses on one-to-one interactions between older adults and volunteers. KIND Collaboration facilitates a one-to-neighborhood scale of interactions, and KIND Connection bridges the older adult to the world. Let's take a closer look at each of these programs.
The first scale, one-to-one, is KIND Community. It's a matching service to deliver support through goods and resources to older adults in need. To take you through KIND Community, let me introduce you to Philip. Philip is a retired chef who lives alone. His niece, Mary, usually goes over to his house to help him with chores. Recently, Mary has had to move to another town for work, and she hasn't been able to meet Uncle Philip since. Uncle Philip's arthritis has been getting worse, and he's finding it harder to do things he'd normally been able to do, like going to his neighborhood barbershop for a haircut. Mary cares very much about Uncle Philip, and so she wants to find a way to be there for him, despite the distance.
Long-distance caregivers spend nearly twice as much on caregiving than those caring for a loved one close by, because they're more likely to hire professional help. KIND Community is free of cost for older adults like Uncle Philip and would only require caregivers like Mary an annual membership fee of $100. Uncle Philip's journey with the KIND system starts with Mary, who hears about KIND through a KIND promotional video she saw on YouTube. With Uncle Philip's consent, Mary registers him on the KIND website as a member and requests for a volunteer with haircutting skills to come to his home.
While this may seem seamless on the surface, the back end of KIND, the KIND concierge, is hard at work matching Uncle Philip's requests with the appropriate volunteer. The KIND concierge takes in Uncle Philip's preferences, as well as his availability and location, and matches him with the next suitable volunteer. Upon matching, the KIND concierge prompts staff to confirm the volunteer's availability, and also confirms that Uncle Philip has approved the volunteer pairing, as well as the date and time of the service.
Once confirmed, our volunteer arrives at Uncle Philip's house at the agreed upon time. Keep an eye out. He's got KIND gear, so he's super identifiable. This KIND badge is his unique ID to indicate that he has successfully passed his volunteer training and is certified to be a KIND volunteer. So Uncle Philip gets his haircut, and Mary gets notified as it happens. After the haircut, KIND follows up with Uncle Philip through a phone call to ensure that everything went well. On the other end, Mary feels relieved that Uncle Philip is able to receive quality care even when she's not physically nearby.
And this is just one example of the types of services KIND Community can offer through its volunteers. Others include key instrumental activities of daily living, like gardening help, snow shuffling, or taking out the trash. For services we don't have support for, we plan to partner with local businesses and refer older adults to them. We provide local businesses with more clients, and our members receive quality support recommended by KIND. And it's not just Mary who can request services from KIND Community. Uncle Philip can also make requests from KIND. Members can request KIND Community services both online or through calling our designated phone request line.
The next program we'll walk you through is KIND Collaboration, expanding the reach of individual older adults to their neighborhood. KIND Collaboration is a program that facilitates entrepreneurial opportunities and enables older adults to exchange homemade goods with their community. So to take you through the service, we'll introduce you to Rosanny. Rosanny is a recently retired teacher who lives by herself. Ever since retirement, Rosanny has lost the regular connections with work friends, and she's spending a lot more time alone.
And Rosanny is feeling bored and she's actively looking for something new to do. She browses on Facebook and comes across a Kind post. She becomes curious and she decides to navigate the Kind website to see what it's all about. Rosanny is active online, much like other older adults. A recent study found that 88% of older adults over the age of 65 use the internet daily. And of that 88%, 68% use Facebook. On the Kind website, Rosanny explores the programs that Kind offers. She learns that she doesn't need home support from Kind community, but she sees an opportunity to become a Kind volunteer for this vendor pop-up happening in her neighborhood at Waterfront. She becomes curious and she registers online as a member and she signs up to become a volunteer.
So on her day of volunteering, she arrives at the Kind Pod. And this is what our modular Kind Pod looks like as a pop-up store. You'll notice that there are multiple kinds of handmade goods created by various older adult vendors, such as paintings and pottery crafts, displayed throughout the storefront. While volunteering to help these older adult vendors sell their goods, Rosanny becomes interested in learning how she can become a vendor herself, since she always enjoyed painting during her free time. At the end of her shift, Rosanny reaches out to a Kind staff member to ask about the opportunity to become a vendor.
And the staff member gives her a vendor starter kit. The kit walks her through everything she needs to vend with Kind: a price calculating tool, a breakdown of the vending process, and administrative support. After reading the information, Rosanny decides to become a vendor to sell her paintings. Rosanny enjoys the extra income she made selling her paintings, but more importantly, she is able to make some meaningful connections with people in her community. Beyond the pod, in aligning with our commitment to accessibility, vendor goods are also available online on the Kind website, or through a simple table and umbrella present at a local community center.
Our final and largest scale involves the individual to the world. This is Kind Connection. Kind Connection is a digital program that captures life stories and wisdom from older adults and shares it with larger audiences.
Kind Connections empowers older adults with new ways to create content that can be shared with family and friends. The production of these videos become a meaningful activity that adds purpose to an older adult's life. The videos recorded can become mementos that celebrate older adults' lives and achievements even after retirement. People of all ages can access these videos online to learn, reflect, and implement the inspirations from these stories and preparing for their futures.
And here is our modular pod configured for recording. Older adults now have a central space to record their thoughts, stories, and ideas in a cozy studio environment. And alternatively, content can be shot remotely in the comforts of an older adult's own home through either the older adult recording themselves or a volunteer helping them shoot. Initially, Kind volunteers and employees will reach out to members like Rosanny or Uncle Philip to co-create video topics and content. As Kind grows, the idea is to open the platform for video topic suggestions and voting.
And we plan to allocate Kind Connections programming in the following ways. We wish to put our focus on spotlighting the stories and memories of older adults to educate and bring awareness to people of all generations in the community. We also plan to highlight each Kind vendor story and work, which will be broadcasted at the Kind Pod, so as to put stories behind products being displayed. And here in Kind, we appreciate the support of our volunteers. We will highlight and recognize contributions made by our volunteers over the year. All in all, we wish to leverage the communication strategy to bring awareness and attract more people to join Kind.
So think of Uncle Philip going on Kind Connections and talking about his time immigrating here to Canada from Greece in the 1980s, or of Rosanny teaching a painting class through Kind Connections. Aside from having these videos available online on our Kind website for visitors to view, we will also leverage popular video sharing websites such as YouTube and Facebook to share our content. generating interest and demand for kind services all around Canada and the world.
Now, let's put all the components together. Philip and Rosanny are just two examples of older adults whose lives will be touched by Kind. Imagine this. Both Philip and Rosanny's stories are recorded in the Kind Connection database. They might be living alone, but they're not lonely. They're connected, thriving, staying strong, and participating in the community. And Kind is with them every step of the way.
So when we say kind, who is involved? Kind would not be possible without the support of the Kind concierge, volunteers, employees, partners, and older adult members and supporters. The backbone of Kind is supported by the centralized Kind concierge, which is an automated system that matches volunteers and local partners, nudges members and employees, as well as hosting Kind's data.
Volunteers enable the daily operations of the services to run smoothly. We will leverage youth, particularly high school students, to fulfill the volunteer requirements with Kind, as well as younger and older adults looking to give back to the society. Employees coordinate and train volunteers, ensuring safety and quality service standards for everyone involved. And Kind members are at the heart of the cooperative. They are the co-owners, co-creators, beneficiaries, and joint decision makers of the organization. And finally, local partners enable us to fill the service gaps we have through referrals and providing funding, sponsorship, or space for outreach and events.
And speaking of funding, our main sources of revenue will be as follows. A large portion of our revenue will come from government grants, sponsors, donations, and fundraising events. The rest will come from fees and charges from our partners, from Kind collaboration vending fees, as well as caregiver memberships. Caregivers like Mary can manage and create user profiles for Kind members, making sure they're well cared for. The yearly fee of $100 is a small price to pay compared to the ease of mind and relief the Kind system gives caregivers, that their loved one is in good company.
COVID-19 has had a huge impact on socialization for everyone, including older adults. It is important that as we recover from the pandemic, we create a plan that enables social integration, but in ways that keeps everyone safe. We can leverage our fleet of volunteers to check up and connect with Kind members through phone and online. Our mobile pods can become a safe gathering zone where social distancing and health and safety protocols will be enforced. We will leverage our online community and coordinate online events to keep our members involved and engaged. This way, we are still able to deliver on our promises, just modified to ensure safety for everyone involved.
So, how do we start? With regards to our anticipated timeline, we have a 5-year plan to fully integrate our pod and concierge to our system as we spread across Canada. This rollout of digital is in anticipation of the next wave of younger, older adults who will be more familiar with technology. In our first year, we plan to secure funding and pilot our concept in the Quayside community in downtown Toronto. In our pilot, we will test our 3 services.
We will run controlled trials of Kind community with a small group of participants consisting of 15 volunteers and 10 older adults. We will test out Kind collaboration through opening a stall featuring older adults' makers' works. And we will initiate the communications plan set out with Kind Connections and begin co-creating video content and developing the Kind website.
By the 2nd and 3rd year, we will pursue further funding to develop our concierge matching system and our mobile pod in anticipation of expanding our operations. We will also pursue partnerships with government entities, real estate management companies, and nonprofit organizations for funding, events, and space.
And by the 3rd and 4th year, we intend to roll out our services with our concierge and pod, spreading to another neighborhood in the GTA. And this is the rendering of our pod being deployed at a community. And that leads us to the 5th year, where we will be refining our model as needed and expand to more cities across Canada.
And now that we've talked about feasibility, let's talk impact. What makes Kind special? We believe that Kind can empower aging adults to transform society. We want to move with policy, going from separated entities to an integrated system, shifting from reactivity to proactivity through planning and awareness, and changing perceptions of aging through creating meaningful connections between generations. We want to tear down the barriers to access so we can empower older adults in their communities to reduce isolation, all while ending the narrative of older adults as a burden and highlighting opportunities to engage. Our vision is bold. Our aspirations are high. With your help, if we could launch a service like Kind, our journey will continue to inspire more discussions about how we age in communities. And with this in mind, I hope you have a kind day, and we'd like to open up the question and answer period right now.
Wow, what a great presentation. And I see by the questions and comments in the chat that people are really interested in our research and designs. Let's jump right into it and see what people are saying. So, first comment, wow, it looks like you folks put in a lot of work. Well done. Fantastic concept. This is exactly what we need in our neighborhood. I would love to be a vendor. Good impact. Another comment is, this made me really reflect on my own and my parents' aging process. What a thought-provoking presentation. Thank you. Well, it's great to hear such positive feedback. Thank you so much, everyone. Now let's move on to some of your questions. We know we only have a short amount of time with you, so we will do our best to answer as many as we can. Our apologies if we are not able to address all of them at this time. So we have been trying to answer as many as we can in our Q&A chat. So first question, Tony asks, it seems that interviews were fundamental to the development of your insights. How did they contribute to your research, your findings? Saya, I think you would be the best person to answer that.
Thank you, Miriam, and thank you, Tony, for the question. And yes, the interviews were absolutely crucial. In our design research process, it was important that we had case studies, literature reviews, and a solid understanding of the theoretical frameworks first. And where through our secondary research, we were able to cast a wide net and expand the breadth and the scope of our knowledge. Conducting primary interviews not only gave depth to our research, but also a connection with our user groups, whom without talking to or getting to know and hearing their personal stories and individual experiences, we would be missing that empathy piece that's so crucial to our human-centered design philosophy. And truly, it was that connection and the insights that we synthesized from those interviews that really validated our secondary research and drove our 6 insights. And in the publication, also, there are expository essays that contextualize each insight that were really structured based on explaining the theory and the kind of groundwork behind the pain points, challenges, or the preferences and the desires that the interviewees were expressing. And so in that, I really do believe that the design research process to produce strong insights are key to sound design strategy.
Wow, that's so true. Our interview is really very key part of our research. On to our next question. Maria Silvia asks, given the COVID pandemic, do you think that society's thinking about living and aging in place has accelerated? Can you see some of your ideas and insights being pursued given this sense of acceleration? Kim, I think that's a great question for you to handle.
Yeah, definitely. COVID-19 really highlighted the issues that social isolation has on older adults who are already at greater risk and vulnerable. And yes, for older adults who are living on their own without a support system, we know that they are likely feeling extremely fearful and isolated during this trying times for older adults who want to remain in their homes as they age. So this pandemic has really highlighted a lot of downsides and the failures of our care systems, in which the health and safety restrictions implemented during this pandemic has made it clear the importance and need for a design solution that fosters planning throughout policy and technological solution and social support that doesn't require us to quarantine our older adults in order to keep them safe.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for that response, Kane. COVID has changed our perspective in many areas and affected specifically older adults and people who live alone. So our next question is from Einaru. I think there is potential for these services to make a big impact. Will you be continuing with this work past graduation? How can I get in touch to learn more? Cherish, can you answer that?
Absolutely. Yeah, we think there's great potential for our service designs to make an impact, especially for older adults and their loved ones. And after graduation, we're excited to see just how far we can take our concept and even what iterations may come of it. And we know that a number of our audience are either in the design industry or work for social and healthcare organizations. So if you're interested in working with us, we'd be more than happy to partner with you. And you can contact any of us through our personal LinkedIn accounts. And you can find those details in the handout section on the right-hand side of your screen. We hope to hear from you soon. Great question, Inaru. Thanks.
Yes, definitely. We would love to continue working on developing our concept after graduation. Thank you, Cherish. And our next question from Peter. How have you iterated on your past concepts and what led you to create Kind? Crystal, can you respond to that, please?
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you for the question, Peter. Your question really took me down memory lane to the sleepless nights and the long discussions, meetings that we've had with my team and the faculty, which were a lot of great memories, by the way. And so we've had a lot of great concepts throughout the year. And what was really starting to get apparent was that our concepts were mostly streamline focused on creating solutions for a specific problem. So like, for example, we've designed an app that's suitable for older adults' food and cultural needs, created programmings to facilitate new experience for older adults in the public space. And we've even reimagined a long-term care home for dementia patients to age gracefully until end of life. And so as we're brainstorming for our final concept, we really wanted to create a solution that highlights the best of our ideas and that really sums up our research findings. And so after rounds of synthesis, brainstorming, iteration, feedback session, getting down to decision making, we created Kind. It's a holistic, systematic solution that really reflects the strongest of our 6 insights from our research. And so with Kind, we're really trying to create that, bridging that connections between older adults and the community, and really specifically focusing on intergenerational connections, breaking the barrier of long distance connections, as well as facilitating new relationships being formed in the community. So I'd say the systematic solution that we're doing right now, it's pretty ambitious. And so, but our team really believe in this concept, and we really want to do our best to improve the experience of aging.
Wow, it seems you summarized the whole 2 semester. Yeah, Kind definitely encompasses the whole system. I think we have time for one more question. Lady has asked, as an entirely new idea, how do you propose to get the message out to the neighborhoods to get the community to come out to support the Kind pilot? AJ, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. First off, hi, lady. Great question, because part of this solution's key is in its hyperlocality. And I think there's a lot of power in having community member advocates on our side. To gather support from a community, we need the trust of residents who can vouch for what we're trying to accomplish. And I think we can accomplish that by continuing to have these discussions about kind, spreading the word and connecting with like-minded individuals as future community activators. We also have some case studies on how new initiatives have come to neighborhoods to gather support. So we have this hyperlocal social networking app called Nextdoor, and it actually just expanded to my neighborhood here in Scarborough. And what they did was they actually sent letters to each of the residents in the area, and they introduced themselves and invited people to try out their service. So I think Kind can potentially take that kind of approach where we would have some kind of, personalized outreach based on what's appropriate for the neighborhood. And finally, I also want to mention that we'd also leverage social media to communicate Kind's mission to more people. So I'm thinking local community groups on Facebook, YouTube, as well as our Kind website in the future will be key to digital touch points. Thank you for asking.
Wow, thank you, LJ. So that was a great question. In fact, all of the questions that we received were quite relevant and thoughtful. And we appreciate how engaged everyone has been in the chat and all the interest in our research and concept. But unfortunately, that's all the questions we have time for today. Cherish, I'll hand it back over to you.
That was a great Q&A period. Sounds like we've got people really interested in future ways of living and aging in place. I speak for the entire Hello Aging team when I say we're very proud to have designed a solution that has the potential to impact so many Canadians. We each came into this program wanting to make change, to discover new ways of thinking, and to reimagine our current world. We'd like to thank the many people who've come into our lives this year that made this all possible. The many interviewees we met while conducting our primary research, the older adults and the caregivers, our community stakeholders, partners, and advisory committees, our dean, our School of Design chair, and of course, our faculty, Devika, Graham, Heather, John, Lauren, Matt, Monica, Naz, Rob, Simon, Susan, Victor. For the weekend and late evening phone calls, for the days you were pulling out your hair, for the weeks you watched us spin, we say thank you. We appreciate you, and we will not let you down. You've taught us the value of empathy, how to define problems for our users, and to endlessly ideate until we find solutions that are desirable, feasible, and viable. Beyond our publication, final concept, and graduation, we're ready and excited to embark on our next journey as new design strategists. And we hope this is not the end of our working relationships. We hope to engage with you professionally in the months and years to come. And with that, I'd like to introduce our chair, School of Design, Dr. Rita Maurice, to close our event.
Good evening. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Dr. Rita Maurice, and I'm the chair for the School of Design here at George Brown College. I'm so glad to see so many faces here this evening. I think the current pandemic we find ourselves living in certainly highlights the need for people to come together, and in this instance offers a reason to celebrate. Over the past year, I've had the privilege of watching an extraordinary IDS team, aka Hello Aging, tackle the topic of living and aging in place. As you've seen by their research, their insights, and the body of work, this could not have been a more timely topic. The IDS program is one that's already built on collaboration, dedication, and teamwork, and we see this every year. Over the past year, as a virtual studio environment, this small group of 6 portrayed all of these qualities, plus a tremendous amount of resiliency. You should all be very proud of yourselves. I'm certainly proud of you. And for that, and for all of your hard work and efforts, I would like to lead a healthy round of applause across the room. It certainly doesn't have the same impact in my living room as it would in an auditorium, but please know that the efforts are all widely recognized. Congratulations to each of you, to Cherish, to Christelle, to Kim, to LJ, to Miriam, and to Saya. Once again, I'm so proud of you. I'd like to acknowledge the faculty whose mentorship and support guided the student team throughout the first and second semesters, as well as all of the advisors and guest lecturers who gave their skills and knowledge to help the students conduct the work that they've been able to accomplish this year. I can confidently say that the culmination of this research, these insights, and the project truly demonstrate the priority of social inclusion for older adults living and aging in place, alongside a healthy dose of kindness, the most important of all. Once again, thank you and congratulations to the 2021 IDS cohort.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maurice. And to everyone who has joined us today, thank you. If you're interested in our upcoming research publication, please drop your email in the chat now, and we'll be sure to send you details on how you can receive your very own copy. If you'd like to connect with us regarding any of our research projects or about potential opportunities, reach out through our personal LinkedIn accounts, which you'll find in the handout section on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll leave you now with a video montage that will give you a glimpse into the many projects, working sessions, and mural boards we've created throughout the year. If I had a loonie for every sticky on these boards, we could all retire today. With that, the Hello Aging team wishes you a kind goodbye. Stay healthy, stay safe.